Check the mic, we're going live. Stories told, they rise and dive. Topics fresh with every spin. You won't guess what's coming in. Every week a new surprise. Minds awake, never lies. Conversations bold and free. Tune in now, just wait and see. This podcast is uncalled for. Catch us here, there's so much more. Laughs and tales you can't ignore. A journey that will leave you floored. In the night or in the day, just press play, we're on our way. Voices sharp, opinions bright, talking through the day and night.
Hi everybody, welcome to the podcast. A little blast from the past with all the right-wingers going down with sexual harassment suits, and it reminded me of the big one back in 2004. Out of that 2004 and the whole Epstein thing in current events at this point in time. And before I actually read an article about this, let's define a couple of words that'll help you out with this particular story. One of them is the word loofah. What is a loofah? Well, a loofah is a shower accessory that's commonly used for a dual purpose of cleaning and exfoliating the skin. Loofahs are named for the tropical and subtropical gourd within the cucumber family called loofah, L-U-F-F-A, that is used as material to make the shower sponges. As the loofah plant matures, its fibers dry out, allowing the shell left over to be used as the spongy material for the exfoliation tool after the seeds are removed and the gourd is sliced and shaped. Loofahs often offer benefits beyond exfoliation. They effectively spread soap around the body to cleanse, as they stimulate blood circulation during use, and because loofahs are porous, they are more susceptible to harboring bacteria and fungal organisms that can be harmful and cause infections. Proper care of the loofah includes rinsing and drying the loofah after every use and soaking the loofah in a diluted solution of bleach to clean it weekly. It is also recommended to replace a loofah every 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, so that's loofah. Now let's look up the word falafel. Falafel is a deep-fried ball or patty-shaped fritter of Egyptian origin that features in Middle Eastern cuisine, particularly Levantine cuisines. It is made of ground fava beans and a nice Chianti chickpeas, or both, and mixed with herbs and spices before frying. Falafel is often served in a flatbread such as a pita, samoon, lafa, not to be confused with loofah, or taboon. Falafel also frequently refers to a wrap sandwich that is prepared in this way. The falafel balls may be topped with salads, pickled vegetables, and hot sauce, and drizzled with tahini-based sauces. Falafel balls may also be eaten alone as a snack or served as part of a meze tray. Falafel is a popular street food eaten throughout the Middle East. In Egypt, it is often made with fava beans, while in Israel, Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria, it is typically made with chickpeas or sometimes a blend of both. Now, why am I defining these two words, loofah and falafel? Because the guy I'm going to be talking about confused the two in a shower sex fantasy. And I'm going to take the other hand with the falafel thing. And I'm going to put it on your pussy, but you have to do it kind of... Yeah. So, the article, Slate.com. Bill O'Reilly launched a new attack on his first Fox News accuser last year in secret until we found out. So in 2004, she became Bill O'Reilly's first accuser. Nearly 20 years later, he went after her again. Newly uncovered legal documents showed how the old NDA negotiated between the former Fox host and his producers still binds them both. Written by Molly Olmstead. Published October 23rd, 2024. So 20 years. So 20 years for this article, 21 for us to talk about it, and likely 22 when this comes out. So of course, if you're not familiar with Bill O'Reilly, well, good for you. He is a far right-wing pundit who had a show, probably the highest rated show on Fixed Noinch for many, many years until he was fired for excessive sexual harassment. Before Fixed Noinch, he did other TV cases, most notably a little show called Inside Edition, which is still on today, but he's not hosting it anymore. And there's that very famous blooper of him saying, fuck it, we'll do it live. Yeah, that guy. So, all the way back in 2004, Andrea Mackris became the first woman to accuse Fox News host Bill O'Reilly of sexual harassment. Her story did not gain her much support. 2 decades later, and long before #MeToo, the public seemed more primed to joke about O'Reilly's lasciviousness than to empathize with Mackris, who was a producer on The O'Reilly Factor. The specifics of the alleged harassment didn't help either. Somewhat infamously, O'Reilly imagined rubbing her with the falafel thing when he had meant to say loofah. He meant the fibrous sponge, but it came out Middle Eastern cuisine. Critics delighted in the hypocrisy of a family values conservative cheating on his wife in such a sordid way, but did not stop to ponder what it must have been like to actually work for this guy. Her accusations came to light only because Mackris and O'Reilly filed lawsuits against each other, and the filings were both posted on the website The Smoking Gun. Unfortunately, I don't think you'll be able to find it. It's really hard to find today. So, certain details were printed verbatim from the transcripts of recordings Mackris had made that became public via the lawsuits. They were both salacious and memorable in a way that lent credibility to Mackris's claims and provided fodder for comedians and bloggers like the falafel thing. It says loofah thing, but falafel, it's just funnier in this context. But the settlements that Mackris and O'Reilly eventually signed soon prohibited them both from speaking about the subject. Which is why it must have been such a relief when in summer 2021, Mackris seemed liberated enough by the Me Too movement to start to talk about what had happened to her. It was a few years after Harvey Weinstein's fallout. It seems that the shift in power away from abusers to accusers was no blip, that the women who took down powerful men still had the public on their side. More critically, by this point, O'Reilly had long been ousted from his job after several more women levied similar accusations in 2017. The reasons to doubt her story seemed seriously reduced. Mackris kicked off her campaign with a tell-all interview with the Daily Beast for a story titled Bill O'Reilly's Accuser Finally Breaks Her Silence. A month later, the Daily Beast dropped a podcast interview with Mackris, diving into the forces that protected O'Reilly and her forced NDA that she was now willing to breach. She next made plans to go on The View. Then suddenly, with no further statement, she went quiet. And we now know why. According to previously unreported legal documents surfaced by my colleagues Josh Levin and me, O'Reilly launched a legal challenge against Mackris over her going public because, as she herself said, doing so violated her original NDA. The results of the confidential arbitration that followed were unsealed this past March. That arbitration panel found that both parties were guilty of breaking their agreements. Mackris and O'Reilly each had to pay nearly $100,000 for the cost of their legal battle, with the power of the NDA reasserted over both of them. Wow. Just wow. So the end result shows the ways the system is still rigged towards the rich and powerful. In some ways, it's because of the obvious reason the legal costs were likely nothing to O'Reilly, but based on mentions of Mackris' financial strain in the filings, they were likely significant for Mackris. But more interestingly is what was revealed about the original NDA and legal agreement that Mackris signed when she negotiated the settlements 20 years ago. In a declaration publicly filed in court in 2021, Mackris said that she signed the original NDA in tears and under pressure from attorneys who told her how unsympathetic she would seem to the world. Not only that, the NDA itself is a fascinating thing to consider. Among other oddities, it required Mackris to turn over the recordings she had over O'Reilly and bound her to lie about their validity if ever confronted with them. An odd element that attorneys for the National Women's Law Center say is highly unusual. We do a lot of advocacy against use of NDA agreements in sexual harassment, says Jennifer Mondino, the senior director of the NWLC's Time's Up Legal Defense Fund. I can't think of anyone that has language like this where it's telling people to lie. So that seems like a wild thing for lawyers on both sides to be saying. It's an indication that society may have changed in regards to NDAs, sexual harassment, and Bill O'Reilly's reputation, but the legal documents made before Me Too are as binding as ever. Which, that's pretty fucked up, if you ask me. Being contractually obligated to lie about what happens. I don't know. It's like Kevin Dumoff only with sexual harassment. And to use another O'Reilly quote, MFer, break out the iced tea. Andrea Mackris' time at Fox began to sour when she and her fiance broke up. This was in May 2002. Close to 2 years into her time as an associate producer for The O'Reilly Factor, and Mackris suddenly found herself in need of a raise to afford her rent. She asked a Fox executive for help, and he had spoken to O'Reilly. O'Reilly then invited Mackris to dinner. If I were Miss Mackris at this point, I would have brought a friend with me to make sure everything was on the up and up. But that's just my opinion. There. Mackris had traveled with O'Reilly before without incident, but according to her original sexual harassment lawsuit at that dinner, O'Reilly suddenly began talking about his masturbation and his past sexual escapades. He urged Mackris to use a vibrator to blow off steam. She would later tell the Daily Beast that he finished the dinner by saying, "Stick with me and you'll go far." That's not Bill. That's not appropriate business conversation. Alright. Oh boy. According to the affidavit given during that 2021 legal dispute, she said O'Reilly continued the harassment. He tried to ask her and a friend for a threesome. Repeatedly asked her to engage in phone sex. Shared sexual fantasies about her. And masturbated on the phone while speaking to her. How could she know that? Because this was before video phones were really that common. At one dinner, Mackris testified she warned him and she knew he harassed other women too, and he should be careful. Mr. O'Reilly vehemently responded with threats to the effect of, "If any woman ever breathed a word, I'd make her pay so dearly that she'll wish she'd never been born." Her filing said, "I'll take her through the mud, bring up things in her life, and make her so miserable that she'll be destroyed. And besides, she wouldn't be able to afford the lawyers I can or endure it financially as long as I can. And nobody would believe her. It'd be her word against mine, and who are they going to believe?" At the time these accusations became public, and every time they had come up since, O'Reilly has denied any wrongdoing. The problem for Mackris is that this all allegedly happened before there was a real playbook for how to handle it. Plus, Mackris loved her job, and O'Reilly was still a highly respected figure in broadcast media. I don't know about respected. Maybe on the right, but he was certainly mocked by the mainstream. So instead of quitting or taking other more drastic action, she says she attempted to sidestep his advances, insisting in her legal filings that she repeatedly asked O'Reilly to stop talking about sex. O'Reilly, she alleges, ignored her. And it continued for years, she claimed. Mackris recorded many of these calls, she claimed in her 2021 affidavit, which explains the detail in the shower sex fantasy. It goes from a loofah mitt to the falafel thing. Right. For 6 months in 2004, she left for CNN, but she didn't like the workplace and returned to Fox. Until August of that year, O'Reilly treated Mackris professionally. Then she said He started up again, calling her on the phone and masturbating while he spoke to her. The final straw for Mackris was an incident in September in which he called and relayed a mutual masturbation fantasy, ending with a promise that next time you'll come up to my hotel room and we'll make this happen. Again, O'Reilly denies doing any of this. So, once again, like every other time, I asked him why he continued to do this when I only ever said no and please stop and you're my boss, she recalled to the Daily Beast. Instead, he's like, I know, but I'm going to make you play. Here was my boss, a man who held my career and future in his hands, acknowledging that he knew I never consented, but he didn't care. After that call, she hired lawyers who sent a sexual harassment complaints to Fox. But before Mackris could go any further, O'Reilly hit her with a lawsuit alleging that she and her lawyer were trying to extort him out of $60 million in hush money. Geez, that sounds vaguely familiar. The declaration, the windmills they cause cancer. Yeah, that guy. This is the single most evil thing I've ever experienced, and I've seen a lot, O'Reilly said on his show that day. Within 24 hours, she filed a sexual harassment lawsuit against O'Reilly and Fox. The information contained in these suits was ultimately published and widely consumed. But the focus was more on mockery of O'Reilly than on support for Mackris. Some doubted her motives. Others seemed to question how bothered by it she had really been. In his column in the Washington Post, Richard Cohen argued that Mackris either lacked common sense or was playing O'Reilly in order to get better assignments and pay. She had, he wrote, undermined her own victimhood by going to dinner with him, by going up to O'Reilly's hotel room to watch a presidential press conference, by returning to Fox after a stint at CNN. I almost pity O'Reilly, he wrote. If he did it, it is wrong, just plain wrong, but it's also wrong for a woman to be even a bit complicit and then act as if she played no role whatsoever in the oldest game known to mankind. She screamed for help a bit late in the game. Still, I'm going to interject here. No, you couldn't get away with that stuff today. So, the New York Post, owned by Rupert Murdoch, ran with 2 stories that portrayed Mackris as unstable, cruel, entitled, and sexually aggressive. Funny, her public statements seemed to indicate she was the exact opposite. O'Reilly, meanwhile, had begun his own public relations campaign, portraying himself as a victim of a politically motivated attack by Mackris' attorney who had donated to Democrats. Where are we hearing this now? Seriously, Donnie and O'Reilly are using the same fucking playbook. There comes a time when enough is enough, O'Reilly proclaimed on his own show the night of his lawsuit. The next day he went on live with Regis and Kelly to spell out his extortion accusations. I knew I would perhaps ruin my career, he said of the lawsuit, If I have to go down, I'm willing to do it. Baracha! Double entendre. On October 28, 2004, the news broke that O'Reilly and Mackris had settled. No details emerged, but O'Reilly's lawyers put out a statement declaring that everyone involved regretted the pain caused by the litigation and argued that there had been no wrongdoing whatsoever by anyone. On air, O'Reilly told his audience, "This brutal ordeal is now officially over, and I will never speak of it again. This matter has caused enormous pain, but I had to protect my family, and I did. All I can say to you is please do not believe everything you hear and read. Maybe you shouldn't be sexually harassing your employees there, Bill." All right. Later, thanks to reporting in the New York Times, the public would learn what had happened. O'Reilly had agreed to pay Mackris $9 million, $3 million of which would go to her lawyers as contingency. Mackris agreed to leave Fox, and both parties agreed to sign a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA, binding them to not speak publicly on the topic. It seems to be a standard series of events, but in April 2018, in a related legal filing, the original agreement was made public, revealing a few strange things. For one, Mackris had been required to turn over all of her audio recordings, diaries, and anything else that counted as evidence to O'Reilly's lawyers to be destroyed. Mackris and her lawyers had to agree that should any such evidence ever somehow emerge publicly, Mackris was legally bound to lie about their validity. Here's the exact language. It is expressly agreed that should any materials become public by any means, including through third parties, after the date of this agreement, all parties will disclaim them as counterfeits or forgeries. Wow. Just wow. Moving on. Then there was the agreement by her lawyers to not provide legal help to anyone suing O'Reilly, and to instead provide legal advice to O'Reilly regarding sexual harassment matters. The easiest way to explain this is to say that it was bizarre and baffling, but as the Times noted at the time, it was considered unethical in the legal community. As Dahlia Lithwick wrote also at the time, it's hard to read that as anything but Mackris' lawyer changing sides and joining forces with O'Reilly as condition of the settlement agreement. And the lawyer for Mackris in 2018, looking back at her original agreement, called the arrangement profoundly unethical. Duh! Arguing that the lawyer switch left Miss Mackris virtually without legal counsel. Mackris had to agree to waive any conflict of interest claims arising from this particular agreement. Combine that agreement with the destruction of the tapes and the full silencing of Mackris. Only O'Reilly was allowed to relay to his millions of viewers a statement consistent with the agreed upon public statement drafted by lawyers. It seems abundantly clear that O'Reilly came out of the agreements with a better public-facing resolution than Mackris did. But the strangest element was this. The mediator of the 2004 settlement, it turned out, was Mark Kasovitz, who is now known for representing Donnie Dumbfuck. But more relevantly for this case, Kasovitz would go on to represent O'Reilly against later sexual harassment claims. Jeez, Bill. Oh my god. At this point, I would like to pause for seconds so we can decompress and remind everyone of a little novel that Mr. O'Reilly wrote. It's called Those Who Trespass, a novel of television and murder. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It just takes too long, but I'm going to paraphrase a couple scenes. So this is a murder mystery. The murderer is a TV journalist that's based on O'Reilly. And he's being hunted down by a cop who is also based on O'Reilly. So O'Reilly fighting O'Reilly. It reads like softcore porn, and especially the last bits. Oh, I thought you drowned out there, snorkel man. Tommy O'Malley was naked and at attention. Drowning is not an option unless, of course, you want me to perform a natural act to you in this shower. That's how the book ends, pretty much. So this is not a nice. So this whole loofah falafel thing in the shower, not an isolated incident. Clearly, this dude likes fantasizing about shower sex. So let's continue with the article. So on April 1st, 2017, The Times, Emily Steele, and Michael S. Schmidt published an investigation that found that 5 women working for Fox had entered settlements with O'Reilly over sexual misconduct claims. The Times reported that Fox News and O'Reilly had hired a public relations firm to help him control the narrative, and a private detective, Bo Dietl, who was also a Fox News contributor, to dig up dirt on Mackris. The goal was to depict her as a promiscuous woman, deeply in debt, who was trying to shake down Mr. O'Reilly, the Times reported. Mackris was photographed in the article, but didn't speak about the details of the case. She instead told them about PTSD and identified struggles after being forced out of the company and out of the industry as she sees it. O'Reilly responded to the article by going on the offensive, saying that the women who accused him of politically motivated extortionists. Again, where are we seeing this playbook right now? On the Today Show, speaking with Matt Lauer, who is another man later fired for sexual misconduct allegations. He had described the allegations as a hit job, a political and financial hit job. On his own podcast, he blamed smear merchants and said, "My enemies will want to silence me, have made my life extremely difficult." Who? Al Franken? Keith Olbermann? Is that who we're talking about here? So, he told Sean Hannity that he was conducting an investigation that would clear his name and expose the whole thing. He told New York Times reporters that he could prove that it was all bullshit. He was represented during his time by Kasovitz, and Kasovitz would go on record as saying he had proof that the women's stories had been invented for political reasons. Bill O'Reilly has been subjected to a brutal campaign of character assassination unprecedented in post-McCarthyist America, says Kasovitz in a 2017 statement. This law firm has uncovered evidence that the smear campaign is being orchestrated by far-left organizations bent on destroying Bill O'Reilly for political and financial reasons. That evidence will be put forth shortly, and it is irrefutable. If that proof was shared anywhere, it never surfaced publicly and wasn't enough to overrule the women's claims. Oh, jeez. Post-McCarthyist. This sounds quite McCarthyist, to be completely honest with you. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency, you and that putz that's currently running the country to the ground? Moving on. For Mackris, this was galling. After she learned that other women had claimed that they had been harassed by O'Reilly, had banded together to say that he had broken the terms of their agreements by talking about them, and also defamed them for what he said, Mackris joined the suit. This effort wouldn't go anywhere. The judge eventually decided that the women weren't singled out enough by O'Reilly's fake complaints for it to count as defamation, but did lead to the unsealing of the original settlements between O'Reilly and his accusers. When the public learned about the particularities of Mackris' deal in April 2018, the Me Too movement had changed the public's perception of NDAs as well. Perhaps it was that popular support that gave Mackris the confidence to speak out in 2021, after her last hopes of getting a jury trial for her complaints were quashed. In July, the Daily Beast ran the interview with Mackris, in which she recounted the harassment as well as the story of the 2004 NDA. In her telling, she had been coerced and her lawyers had pressured her to take the money. There's no question that sharing the story of the NDA violated the terms of the NDA. It stipulated that the nature and terms of this settlement agreement, including the existence of the agreement and the fact and amounts of any payments, are to remain completely confidential. For the same reasons, Mackris couldn't talk to Slate for this article. But during the brief moment that she was willing to talk, she told the Daily Beast that she had decided to take on the legal risk anyway, that she felt it was the only way to regain power over her life. To which I say, bravo, Miss Mackris, bravo. It's taken time to face the fact that there isn't any moving on while I am still bound to lie for Bello. She told the Daily Beast, what more can attorneys and henchmen and corporations continue to now do to me that they haven't already done? Turns out they could continue to deny her even that. The day before Mackris plans to go on The View, O'Reilly's lawyers served her with a restraining order. The public would not hear directly from Mackris again. Even though Mackris can't tell us what happens during this period, we know from her court filings and from her conversations with the Daily Beast that she was aware she was taking a risk of speaking out about O'Reilly. If I have to pay a breach, it's less than the cost of the past 17 years, she said in a Daily Beast podcast from July 2021. I'll tell you that I welcome the risk because this is intolerable. Mackris has said the harassment, the litigation, and the aftermath all took a toll on her mental health. In speaking to the Daily Beast, she emphasized how hard it had been to feel suddenly frozen out of the world, broadcast news media, derailed from a promising career that had been central to her identity. There's also the unsettling amount attention her case drew. According to the newly unsealed arbitration testimony, the period right after the publication of the 2017 Times article had been particularly miserable for Mackris. She said she became afraid of intruders and others who may wish to cause her harm. In documents that were referenced in but not unsealed, she spoke of the return for PTSD. It's hard to see how Mackris envisioned it ending in anything but a ruling against her. The NDA specified that she could not discuss or disclose directly or indirectly by expression, implication, or inference any information concerning the agreement, its terms, and its underlying claims. But in the recent round of litigation, Mackris contended that she had real reason to think she could breach the NDA. O'Reilly, she asserted, had nullified the NDA by himself, speaking out against his accusers in 2017. So let's continue. So this wasn't an argument any legal experts Slate spoke with thought was particularly viable. But it's possible that Mackris really believed that. After all, was it fair for that one party could share his opinions on the matter while the other party remained muzzled? Also, the laws around NDAs have changed by this point. In 2018, the New York State Legislature passed a law banning NDAs related to sexual harassment, unless the victim wanted one. And clearly in this case, she did not. And even in the latter scenario, an alleged victim was to be given 21 days to consider whether to sign such an agreement, with 7 more days to change their mind. It's clear Mackris was not given 3 weeks to consider the NDA, and confidentiality was clearly not her preference. Miriam Clark, a labor and employment lawyer at the New York firm Ritz, Clark and Ben Asher, said it was possible to make the argument that this law could retroactively apply to old agreements, but that it was unlikely to succeed. Similarly, Clark said an attorney could try to nullify an old agreement under a 2023 decision from the National Labor Relations Board that related to disparagement clauses in several agreements. And according to Clark, courts should need to work out whether the terms could affect agreements made over sexual harassment claims and involving high salary non-union employees. There's some reason to think that in the future things could change for women like Andrea Mackris, who are tied to old agreements drafted before these laws addressed the inherent power imbalances. Mackris's 2004 NDA almost certainly wouldn't come about today, but for now she is still bound by it. And yeah, you definitely see parallels between Bill O'Reilly's behavior and that of the current schmuck in chief. And oh, by the way, how are those 34 felony counts going there, Donnie? So I think we're going to close with that. And of course, as Olbermann would, he still does this on Countdown in his podcast form. He still names worst persons in the world every episode, and I'm always reminded that he really loved to name O'Reilly as a worst person in the world. And yeah, here we go. Bill O'Reilly, today's worst person in the world.
Say, baby, put down that pipe and get my pipe up. I would like you to unhook your bra and let it slide down your arms. You can keep your shirt on. Off with those pants. I wish I were a lesbian.